Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by my friends over at Point Blank Safety Services. These are armed service guards that are all off-duty police officers. So think about it. If you ever need a security guard for your construction site, for intersection light control, lane closures on the freeways, trade shows, loss prevention, retail and bank security, wouldn't you love to have it protected by a bunch of off-duty trained officers? We all know that these guys are all looking for additional incomes to help them as they go about their career protecting our lives. Well, what a better way than to create a business, create a job that allows them to make money in their off time. So if you ever in need, check out Point Blank Safety Service at pointblanksafety.com.
Hey guys, episode 50. God, man, what a cool flippin' milestone. When I started this whole adventure, I was really in it for me. I really just wanted to hear people's stories about their journeys. And, as they went along the way, and I had no idea how much their stories were going to affect me and inspire me in my life and what I'm doing. Just an awesome ride so far. So thank you guys for jumping in with me and taking this journey with me. It's been awesome. So for this episode, this is such a cool milestone, and I've gotten such great feedback and comments on some of my stories, and part of my journey is sharing that out on Kick-Ass Fridays. I really wanted to bring you guys a unique story about a very important part of my life and what we created as part of this, because it's been one of the most touching things that I've been a part of, and it's been a absolute marker in my life of something that's been able to just give back. So I'm going to take you guys on the journey of how we created the nonprofit called Connecting for Conquerors, and the ups, the downs of what we went through, the wins, the losses, the nightmares of that journey, and kind of walk you through really what it was like to start a nonprofit with a group of volunteers. So stick around, hold on for this ride, guys. It's going to be a fun special episode. Donnie's Kick-Ass Fridays, how we built C4C. It was 5 or 6 years ago when a dear friend of mine by the name of Deanna Stewart had just took on a new job with a local nonprofit in our hometown of Fort Worth, Texas, called Cancer Care Services. And she had a very touching cancer story. And with her family life and everything, really was looking for kind of her new mission in life. She was leaving a career where her heartstrings weren't in it, and I think she was really looking for this social kind of give back, and do something that impacted lives, and she found it. So Deanna went to work for a company, this nonprofit called Cancer Care Services. And what Cancer Care does is they do help and support for cancer patients and their families. And it's some amazing, amazing things. They cover 5 or 6 counties in our local area. But, just to kind of give you an idea of some of the things these guys do, is they do all the non-medical related stuff for cancer patients and their families. So think about it this way: is how many organizations you know that focus beyond the patient that's going through cancer. So what these guys do is they not only embrace the person who's battling cancer, but they embrace the family, the kids, the outreach with counseling services and programs. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing. And I'll bring you a lot of the stories along as we go along with just the things. And I'm probably going to get choked up probably a time or two through here because some of these stories are just truly beautiful. So Deanna goes to work for these guys. And she is given the title of, I think it's like community outreach. So her job is literally to go out and interact with the community and get people to be aware of this nonprofit. And, Deanna in our hometown is a very, very well networked, wonderful, wonderful lady. And she already had this giant Rolodex of people who she had formed these relationships with. And so when she took on this role, she knew that she had a couple of mountains to climb. Mountain number one was not a lot of people knew of cancer care services. There was definitely a need for awareness creation. And then there was a secondary need of beyond awareness, what every nonprofit needs is, additional donors and fundraising. But the primary thing that they really needed, they needed people to know that this service was there and that it was bringing such value to our hometown. So as she jumps in this role and she's thinking about how does she increase awareness, she had this epiphany of a group of people she could engage to help her create this whole thing. So here's how it played out. There was a group of us, 25, 30 of us, that were a part of the Fort Worth Chamber Leads groups. Now, if you don't know what a Leads group is, it's a group of people that meet on a weekly basis, and we share business back and forth. So you imagine that there's 30 different industries represented. And in these, each of these industries, you're really building friends and partnerships that are out trying to help you, grow your business from introductions and referrals. And you're really working on helping each one of those people grow their businesses from introductions and referrals. And it's just a really, really cool thing that, people can come together collectively and support each other in such a cool way in a business setting. So we were all part of this group. And one meeting after Deanna had, started this new role, she came to the group and said, hey, I've started this new position. And one of the biggest things I've been tasked with is to bring awareness to cancer care services. And I could really use your guys' help. And, we were really kind of family at that point. I mean, there was really a cool atmosphere with the group, and there still is to this day. There's still several people that are a part of that whole unit that I still call amazingly dear friends to me, and would all but probably take a bullet for me, just because of the relationships we formed in there. But so she came to the group and she said, one of the things I've been tasked is creating awareness. I could really use your guys' help. And I really want to do a lunch and learn, at Cancer Care Services. I want to bring a group of people out, feed them lunch, and, walk through everything we do, because I think the biggest value that people can get is to actually see what Cancer Care Services does on a regular basis. And she goes, here's my problem, is Cancer Care Services back in the day tried lunch and learns, and they didn't work. They actually, to my understanding, completely flopped, and they weren't successful. So she wanted to do these lunch and learn ideas, and it wasn't that the leadership team wasn't supportive, and they were absolutely supportive, but they were hesitant because it hadn't been a successful endeavor for them in the past. They had faith in Deanna, so they were like, it was one of those, go, but if it doesn't work, we understand why. So it was support, but there wasn't a whole lot of, yes, let's do this because we know you're going to kill it and it's going to be awesome. So it was let's try it once and see what happens. Now, what I don't think Melanie, who's the executive director, didn't know was the power of Deanna's Rolodex when she put this task on. And if you put Deanna on something, she's going to accomplish it. And so when Deanna said, I really want to do these lunch and learns, she positioned it in such a beautiful way. And it's a sales maneuver. And Deanna, tell you, she's not necessarily a salesperson, but this was a great sales maneuver. So she came to the team, to our team, and there's a bunch of us that have that we're just going to get shit done mentality. And she said, hey, look, I want to do this lunch and learn. My leadership team, they're supportive, but they've done these in the past and they don't think it will work. What do you guys think about, showing up for this lunch and learn? So the gauntlet was kind of thrown down, that the leadership team didn't think it was going to work. This was her first kind of big thing with Cancer Care Services. So our leads group quickly came up with the idea that we were just going to move our meeting to the lunch and learn. Because if they hadn't, if bodies is what she needs, bodies is what we could give. And in the same token, we get to learn a lot more about Cancer Care Services, her new job, what she was doing. So we just went in force to this first lunch and learn. And I think Melanie and some of the leadership team were a little shocked about how many of us showed up to that inaugural lunch and learn under Deanna's guidance. And so the greeting was so warm and welcoming because I think it was half shock, half pride that we were coming in such force to support Deanna in what she was doing. Now, what none of us were prepared for was how much Cancer Care Services was fixing to impact and change our lives. And, it was such an empowering lunch. So let me walk you through the lunch. So we get there, and a beautiful lady by the name of Carlene Goodridge is doing the catering, and the food was amazing. And we knew we were going to hear stories, but everybody's got a cancer story, right? End of the day, everybody's been affected by cancer in some form or fashion, maybe a friend, family member, whatever. Somebody's got it themselves, everybody's got a cancer story. So, as we are sitting down to eat lunch and the program starts, now you can imagine, there's only 20 of us probably around this table in the conference room of their office. And the meeting starts, and Melanie, who's the executive director, steps up, and she graciously welcomes us to the room and is walking us through kind of the mission and the story of Cancer Care Services, which was, what we expected. It was that traditional welcoming, let me tell you what we do. And then she shares her cancer story. And guys, when somebody shares their personal cancer story, and you guys know, I'm a Marine, I put the tough guy facade on, but, I still cry at chick flicks, okay? So when Melanie starts going through her story, and she battled cancer, her husband battled cancer, and then they lost their 17-year-old daughter to this horrendous disease. And, of course, as Melanie's getting choked up, talking about this beautiful daughter of hers and her battle with cancer. You know, we're all getting choked up, right? And here we are at this business function, all trying not to get teary-eyed because you're at a business function, right? But we're all getting teary-eyed at hearing her story. And then Deanna got up and she shared her cancer story and, the things that she went to. So now we're double hammered, whammied, cancer story. And, we're all, in it at this point. We understand what Cancer Care Services is doing. Their services are beautiful, and now they're walking us through their cancer story. Well, then the third guy to get up, or the third person to get up, is this guy named Charles. Now, Charles is from somewhere in Europe, and I'm no Deanna, and then they're going to correct me because there's probably some specific country he's from, but I never remember. But anyways, Charles gets up and he tells his story. And it was from a really unique perspective, his story, because he was actually, they have a term for it, but I'm going to use the word patient because I don't remember what they call them. But Charles was actually a patient that went through and utilized Cancer Care Services, And, he shared his story, and, you got to imagine a small stature guy that's got, the kind of bravado to him a little bit, but got the cool accent that comes with him, getting choked up as he shares his story. There's not really a dry eye probably in the house. But he goes through and talks about, and I remember the key things really being that he wouldn't have made it through cancer without Cancer Care Services and the support and the counseling and, all the things that they did for him. And that was cool. It was touching. It was warm. It was a beautiful thing. But I'll never forget, to the day I die, when he stood in front of the room and said, look, I'm not a survivor. I hate that word. I'm a conqueror because I beat that shit. And dude, that was the most impactful saying. Now, I said the word shit. I'm sure Charles didn't say that word. I don't even know if Charles cussed. So Melanie and Deanna, when you hear this, I know that's just me, right? But when he said conqueror, dude, that was such a impactful moment. Because the thought process is you're not a survivor. You didn't survive. You beat it. You conquered it. And that is a position of power, and that is just strength. Okay? So now you got all of us sitting around hearing these stories. Charles has just got done, talking about being a conqueror. And, I think a lot of us at that point were, if you would have told us to charge a hill, we would have freaking just headed straight at it without asking why we were heading for it, And it got to the end of the meeting, winding down, and Melanie looks at the group, and she and, Deanna, start going through, how thankful and grateful they are that we came and how much it meant to them. And there was never no ask for money. They weren't sitting across from us with a handout, which I thought was a little odd because they were a nonprofit and they thrive off of the funds generously donated by people, but they weren't asking for money. So I finally got to the point to where I asked, and when you ask a question and you realize you're in trouble before the words fully get out of your mouth, that's kind of where I was at. So I asked, what could we do as a group, as a family of people? What could we do to really help Cancer Care Services out? I mean, what did they need? And they came back and without hesitation, and it wasn't a shock, it was a surprise type thing, but said, the biggest thing that they needed was awareness and funds. And now you say that to a room of people who have built businesses out of networking and are all salespeople in some form or fashion. And the response out of our mouth is, you need awareness, you need money? We got that. And there was this collective vibe in the room was, well, let's tackle that. Let's figure that out. And it wasn't, I don't think there was a single soul that attended that lunch that day that didn't want to, pick up the mission and run with it. So we agreed that at our next, weekly meeting that we would talk about some ideas of what we could do to really raise awareness for cancer care services. So just so happening we leave the meeting, and just so happening that next week we sit down to our regularly scheduled weekly meeting, and the absolute most fantastic idea guy, and one of the most connected guys in our hometown, a guy everybody calls Mr. B, Bruce Rabin, happened to be at this meeting. And we were talking about what could we do to raise funds and awareness. Well, Bruce was listening in, he was offering suggestions, and then he said, that a new drive-in had just opened in town. And it opened right in downtown Fort Worth, had 3 screens, and he goes, I bet they would love to have a nonprofit come and bring a ton of people on an off night, now a non-weekend night, and fill their venue and support a nonprofit at the same time because it gives them some great PR, some great exposure, and they're doing a good thing. Plus, they could make money on a night where, maybe there's not a lot of cars there. And we went, that's a good idea. So our group set the task of coming up with how do we get the Coyote Drive-In to agree to do an event? And how do we get them to give us the space to host a event where we thought maybe, we'd do raffles, silent auction, those type of things. We had no idea. We just knew that we needed something, and this was the new biggest thing in town. And if we could land this, then we could accomplish a lot of what we wanted to accomplish. We could get the awareness. We could probably raise the funds, and we get a ton of exposure because nobody had tackled the venue again. So, I think it was Jen Whitman on our team that was able to reach out to the Coyote Drive-In and get them, and Deanna may have helped her with it, but got the drive-in to commit that they were in. Let's pick a date, and we would 100% do this event. So we set a date, and which was less than 90 days from when we said it, that we were going to host an event at the new big venue, huge venue, of the Coyote Drive-In in downtown Fort Worth. So now we had 20 volunteers sitting around a table trying to figure out how do we pull off this event. So as you're listening to this, one of the things that I can tell you is if you're starting a nonprofit, here's the best piece of advice I can give you. Never start a nonprofit with 20 people sitting around the table. God love the people that have done the ride. Jen, Deanna, you guys have been amazing on this entire journey with me as we've gone through this. But we learned that 20 people trying to sit around the table come up with an idea, although God love everybody that helped us out with it. Everybody brought something to the table, but it was definitely like herding a bunch of cats. And I tell everybody that you've not done anything in life until you've tried to wrangle a bunch of volunteers and get them collectively together to accomplish a mission. I love each and every one of them that came to help us out with that. And God knows we wouldn't have pulled it off without them, for sure. But guys, take my advice. If you're going to start a nonprofit, start with the smallest board that you can legally do, and build from there, which is eventually what we did. But, I digress. I'll get there. So we get this event at the Coyote Drive-In, and we pull it off. We had silent auctions. We had trade, raffle items. We had a DJ. It was awesome. And year one, we raised a little over, we were able to give Cancer Care Services $13,000 check. Now that may not sound like a whole lot, but let me break it down a little bit. You had 20 volunteers, all who are either running their own business or running their own sales, position inside of their companies, doing this on volunteer time, and pulling it completely out of their ass, and were able to pull off not only a successful event, but were able to write a check at the end of it that dramatically impacted the lives of people that were conquering cancer. So it was truly a beautiful thing what we were able to pull off, and it will always be one of the highlight reels of my life that I was actually able to be a part of that whole experience. It was awesome. So after the event, like you do, we all got together. I'm sure consumed an enormous amount of alcohol because of the stress we went through, coordinating an event like that for the first time, and making sure that it was great, awesome, and making sure people got all the stuff they won and impact. And I wanted to make sure, since I became the fearless leader of the whole thing, I wanted to make sure that we buttoned up any loose ends on the back end. So we all came together to figure out, what were kind of our big takeaways from it. I remember going into that meeting with no agenda, and I didn't know what the outcomes would be of that meeting, but it was a positive energy and a positive drive. And we came up with some great lessons learned. Like we shouldn't have had the 20 people, volunteers, yes, that type of thing. But there was a lot of great lessons learned. But when we got to the end of the meeting, the kind of general consensus was, this was good. We did great. We did that much in 90 days. What happened if we had a whole year? And which came around, if we were going to do this, then why don't we create a nonprofit and go all in? And here's why we came up with the idea to creating a nonprofit. And I'm sure somewhere in the world, other people have done this. So I don't want to claim that we were the first. But in our hometown, which is Fort Worth, Texas, a very large town, as far as I know, we were the first ones that ever pulled this off, is we started a nonprofit to support another nonprofit. And here's what's really cool about this. We loved everything. We still love everything Cancer Care Services does. From the counseling services to the food, to the driving services, to the medication deliveries, to the kids camps, and all the things, the social work, the social work, and all the things that they do for cancer patients and their family. We did not want to step in and try and help with that stuff. They were so awesome at what they did. We knew that we couldn't improve upon that process. And so we decided we'd come up with our own nonprofit that 100% of the proceeds would go straight to them. And in doing that, allowed us to do a lot of cool things. Like there was some learning curves where, who do they write checks to? When people are doing raffles and silent auctions and donations. By us starting our own nonprofit, it allowed people to write checks and things straight to us, and we could donate so much more money to Cancer Care Services that wouldn't take away from the funds that they're getting from other areas, and it wouldn't be gobbled up by administrative fees and the like. This was it made absolute sense to do this, and it worked out fantastic for us. So, in doing this, we formed our own 501c3. Right about that time is when Chuck Beligny came on board with us, so he kept up with us really year 2. And he had joined that leads group and, found out what we were doing and wanted to be a part of it. Well, Chuck at the time was the managing partner of a branding and marketing firm. And we were at that stage of, okay, so now our new, 501c3, how do we really come up with a name, a brand, something we can resonate with? So he invited us all over to their office and took us through kind of this brand naming strategy of how do we come up with a name. And a couple of themes kept popping up is, we're a leads group, so we're a networking group. We're really, out there to help each other grow businesses. And what we really do is make connections for people. And then another word kept popping up, which was going back to Charles' story and how he conquered cancer. And, it just kept hitting. And we walked out of that meeting with the name of Connecting for Conquerors. Because what we were doing is we were connecting the public with Cancer Care Services. We were connecting members of our nonprofit with business opportunities. And, we were connecting with the community, and we were doing it all for the people who were conquering cancer. And, I still, to this day, love that name. Because I think it completely tells the story of what we're doing with the entire mission. So, it's been just an awesome, cool thing to watch come to life as, we've gone through all of this. So, fast forward to year 2, we now have an official board of directors, which means we've got to have regular board meetings and the like. And, we pulled off another successful year that year. And we donated, I believe, $15,000 the next year. And we kept finding ourselves getting more and more involved with Cancer Care Services. And, one of the most beautiful things that they do that really is just a phenomenal thing to be a part of is they have this thing called Camp Care. And what Camp Care is a week-long summer camp for the children whose family members and are battling and going through cancer. And we picked the Fridays to go out and cook hamburgers and hot dogs and hang out with these kids and listen to their stories. And guys, let me tell you, if you want a punch in the face, gut punch, listen to a bunch of kids sing songs about their journey with their family members going through cancer. And dude, the beautiful, rough, you want to embrace each one of these kids as they're going through their journey and battling with this. But you're so empowered by the strength in these kids. There was one little girl one year of doing this that walked up to a gal, and her conversation about her mom going through stage 3 cancer and where she was at, and her discussion with this lady who was conquering cancer, and her maturity level in the conversation, which had everything, I think, to do with her upbringing in cancer care services and camp care, was just amazing. And this camp just gave these kids an outlet, a place to let their hair down and just be themselves and know that they're not alone on this journey. I mean, it's so awesome to be a part of. So, we found ourselves volunteering for that. We found ourselves, coming up with creative ways to raise funds for them. So we started doing things like celebrity bartending. A lot of us had some pretty cool connections in town. Some, we knew a lot of people, so we wanted to bring our Rolodex. Yeah, I know, for you young guys, a Rolodex is the place you use to keep all your contacts before the invention of this new fad. So we, had all these connections that we wanted to bring to the table, and we, started going out and partnering up with bars that would allow us to come in and be bartenders. Two of us kind of on our leadership group at that point had been bartenders when we first started doing this, me and Jen. And we were really stoked that, we could both jump behind the bar, something we hadn't done in years, and, sling some drinks. But it wasn't like we were working the shift. We were there working for tips, which was just a cool concept. So how it worked was literally we would go in, we would get the drinks, and we would make the drinks. The bar would get the funds from the sale of the drink. Our nonprofit would take home all of the donations of the tips that night. So it was a really cool partnership between this bar and local nonprofits. So we had a lot of fun doing it. So we kept finding ourselves doing things and partnering up with Cancer Care Services. All of the things we were doing were supporting them, and we had a unique ability at times to supply manpower and extra support for a lot of their things. We would go out to a small little town, in Granbury and go to this jamboree thing they had, but we kept getting involved, and our awareness of what we were doing in the community was really getting some notice, and we were getting some bigger names and bigger people involved. And then year 3 came along. We did another event at the Coyote Drive-In, and it was our most successful year. At that point, we'd figured out how to not screw up so many things. There was a lot of really good lessons along the way, and God loved Jen Whitman and the hours she put in, putting things together. But there was some other just amazing people. And I know, guys, if you're listening to this, I'm going to screw up everybody who helps us along on this journey. But I truly know that I thank you. But, Marcus jumped in at that point and was helping us out with the financial stuff. And Jason had jumped in at that point. And then, we just kept bringing up people that wanted to take this journey and trip with us. And we couldn't have done it without them. And, sorry guys, I'm not calling everybody's names, but, thank you for everything you guys did, with that ride, with us and sticking through us. In year 3 of building, this whole beast, if you will, I came up with a harebrained idea with Jason, and have been very successful in building some businesses through networking. I felt like that there was we could build a leads group like how we started building this nonprofit from a leads group. We could build one of those, and we could get more support and help from other people by giving them a collective mission to, come meet on a weekly basis in support of helping out cancer care services. And I'm going to say at the time is there was 5 of us on the board. It was, Chuck, Jen, Deanna, Jason, and I. And Jason and I are the only 2 that really thought this thing was going to work. And I don't want to say that Chuck, Deanna, and Jen weren't in support of it. They were just skeptical. They didn't know how it was going to work. And I don't even think, Jason and I really understood how it was going to work. But we had the idea, let's form a leads group that would support, what we're doing. And hopefully out of that we could raise some more funds and we could raise some more awareness and possibly get some more bodies to help us out at some of these events. What we did know was the beautiful creation that was going to come out of it. So we formed a networking group that became known as Networking for Conquerors. So now we have Connecting for Conquerors, and then a networking group called Networking for Conquerors, or N4C, that was going to do literally what we had done with this Chamber Leads group is form a collective once-a-week meeting, get around and share business ideas. And the one concept we borrowed that was awesome is when you attended these Chamber Leads meetings is there was a thing called Happy Dollars. And if somebody gave you a referral or somebody gave you an introduction, at the end of the meeting, you could, donate $1 and, say, thank you for the referrals. So we embraced this concept with N4C, and really that was kind of the extent of, how we thought we would raise funds and awareness for these guys was through, these Happy Dollars. So we launched N4C, and we lucked out. We got the right team out the gate to create this new networking group. And admittedly, some of these people were absolutely handpicked. But we knew that for the group to be successful, there had to be some strong leaders at the top. And we just found them. And I think every one of those leaders is still there years later. But we found them. They came in, they stepped up, and we kind of gave them carte blanche, to go build, this group. And we were going to help, we were going to support, but we really wanted them to be their own. And, man, did it take off 100 times more than we ever thought it was going to. These guys, jumped in like nobody's business and really, really got after it. And I can tell you that the year after starting that and this coming up year could not have been done without those guys flat out kicking ass and taking names with it. But, they really brought the new spirit and the new fire and flame to what we were accomplishing. And I'll say, put a little bit new vibe into what we were creating. So, as we evolved with these guys and they're growing, we're figuring out our move, and we're all geared up to do our 4th event at the Coyote Drive-In when we found out that the Coyote Drive-In had gotten new ownership. And the Coyote Drive-In had decided that they were no longer going to do outside events. So here we were, ramping up year 4 of an event, and we'd come to call the drive-in event drive-in to help out, because you would drive into the event to help out. And so, here we are, year 4 of drive in to help out, and we don't have a drive-in. We don't have a venue. We have no idea what the hell we're going to do. And so there's a little bit of a freak out of where can we pull off an event that we can raise the money we've raised and make it a successful event. And there were some gray hair times in there, guys. I mean, at this point, we'd become a line item for cancer care services. They I don't want to say we're counting on our money, but there was a level of expectation that we were going to deliver a certain dollar value, and at that point it probably was a $20,000 to $25,000 line item. That's what we were going to bring to the table, and we had just lost our venue. So we were back to brainstorming. What the hell do we do? Well, luckily, in our hometown, a Topgolf had just opened up. If you guys don't know what a Topgolf is, picture a driving range that's, for the most part, indoors, 3 stories with food and alcohol, and it turns golf into an arcade game that is just ridiculous and a lot of fun. Google it. Just go to topgolf.com and you'll see what I mean. Just an awesome, cool place. Well, one of our dear friends that had been a supporter all along the way had just gotten a job at Topgolf. So we reached out to Crystal Cardwell and, kind of told her what had happened. Is we'd lost our venue and we were still wanting to, and people were expecting us to put on this event, and we had no place to go. And Crystal embraced us and said, come on in, let's figure it out. And, in switching venues, there came a lot of new moving parts with that. I mean, there was a lot of new things that we had to figure out, and the overhead, was a new player that we hadn't had in the past. But it wasn't like Topgolf was in a situation where they could just give us an entire floor. So we were going to have to purchase a whole floor. So, now we're having to figure out how do we come up with funds to pay for the venue, not take away from funds that we need to give to cancer care services. How do we take a family environment like a drive-in and turn it into more of a business networking environment with a Topgolf? So there was this huge changeover that was happening. And, there came a new level of how the hell are we going to do this? And, the cool thing behind it was at that time we had picked up Marcus. He had came out of C4C, the Networking for Conquerors, and he had jumped on the board with us. We picked up Todd Cerisi at that point, and he had jumped on the board to help with us. And, we had a leadership team that was determined we were going to pull this off, and we were going to make this happen. And, to give you an idea, is Deanna was still around, Jen was still around. We had picked up Chuck along the way. Jason had jumped in, early on. And, we had a team, and of course Marcus and Todd came in, so we had this team that was, we're going to get it done. We don't know how to pull it off. And I will tell you that same year, I stepped down from the president's role. Well, how do I put it? So nobody really let me step down. Chuck and I became co-chairs at that point. So Chuck really stepped up and started taking a more predominant leadership role, which was freaking fantastic for me. It allowed me to embrace some of the things that I'm good at. But Chuck came in and brought a lot more structure and a lot more details and things to it, and it was awesome. So, Chuck was at the helm of this thing and really making this thing a cool event. Well, long story short, we pull off this event, and we make more money than we can give to Cancer Care Services, almost more than all the other years combined. And we were able to write them a tremendously large check that was on the backs of just some badass individuals that stepped up and helped us pull off just this awesome and amazing thing. And that check is now changing the lives of people that are battling with cancer and are really doing just amazingly beautiful things, and it's so amazing. And the people that have been involved with it, just what a ride. I mean, and this whole thing was built on an idea. It's not my place to tell my board's cancer stories, but we all got one. And I lost a grandfather and uncle, some other family members to cancer in their battles, and it's just a horrible disease. And everybody's affected by it. And to find an organization that's just so caring and beautiful with what they do, and to be a part of a group that help bring so much awareness to a phenomenal organization. And we brought money, but really we brought the spotlight to Cancer Care Services and the mission that they were providing and doing for all these people on their journey. It was just so awesome. And it was really cool for me on my 50th episode to bring this back to life and have you guys walk through that journey with me, because we're based off the success of that 4th year. We're going to be doing the 5th year of Drive-In to help out, and we kept the name because we know we weren't at the drive-in movie theater, but we were at the driving range, so it's still driving to help out. So the brand still worked, the logo still worked. Some things just happen for a reason. And it's going to be fun because in October of this year, we'll be doing another one in Fort Worth, and we'll be bringing in sponsors, and because of the things and our gracious sponsors and some of the things, it's the only event where you get to go play golf, you get to open bar and open food. I mean, it's just a cool experience, and I'm glad to be a part of it. I'll post links in the bottom of this so you guys can check out Cancer Care Services and really take some time to dive into their story and see what they do. And I'd be honored if you would consider donating to their cause and their mission, and just tell them you heard it on the show. They're not financially sponsoring me or supporting me in a financial sense. This is me just giving back one more time to their beautiful mission, their beautiful cause. And for all the people that have been on this journey with us, the ride, for all the people that, stepped up and jumped in and rolled up their sleeves, and you guys, you know who you are, and I appreciate you. I really, really, really do. For the support from Cancer Care Services and what you guys have done to embrace us as a group, collective, and allowed us to take a group of volunteers and help you guys with the things you do. Thank you to all of you. And I truly, truly mean that. It's humbling to know that I've been a part of this ride. So, guys, 50 episodes. That's so awesome. I know some of you have done all these episodes with me, and I really appreciate you. Thank you. We're going to keep rocking and rolling, and hundreds and hundreds of more will be coming. So thank you for my guests for sharing the stories. Thank you to my listeners for being there with me on this journey. And, let's keep rocking and rolling, run like hell, and let's keep kicking some ass.
Guys, thanks so much for listening to this episode. I hope you were impressed by it as much as I was. Man, keep kicking ass in life. Please do me a favor. Comment, share, tell your friends about this. Every share just brightens my day.